Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, along with my co-host, Rick Curti. Rick, what's going up in Charlotte, North Carolina?
We're doing well, guys. We're just trying to stay safe out there. I hope everyone else is staying safe as well.
And David Levin, what's going up 5 hours north of I-95 up in Jacksonville?
Well, we're dealing with the heat, not only with the weather, but what's going on downtown. I'm hoping everybody, just like Rick said, is staying healthy. Remember, it's not just what's going on now with the incidents and the situation that's happened over the last few days. We're still dealing with the virus, people. We still need to be diligent and be proactive and staying healthy and safe.
You talk about a double whammy. That's definitely it. But we're going to lead off with sports, and then we'll get to the meat of this broadcast. Okay, and we'll touch briefly on the NBA and the NHL plan. I know the NBA is talking about a return that could begin as early as July 31st. I know they're bannering 22 teams, and of course everything being done in Atlanta. Orlando, of course, you'd like to think it could be Atlanta with all the activity going on there. Good comeback. But anyways, let's talk about the thoughts. Rick, why don't you start it off about the NBA returning pretty soon?
I think it's a big mistake. They need to shut down the whole season. It's not worth it. I mean, they're holding practices, and they're doing it in cities where they have very loose restrictions. I think this is a bad idea. They need to just stop the season, and, because you're going to get people sick. Apparently you're going to be playing in empty arenas, I assume, because you can't have any fans there. I'm really surprised that Adam Silver's still kind of going along with this. Well, it's all about people's safety right now, and I'm just like, they just need to shut the whole season down.
Yeah, Rick, the updated proposal, as I understand it, everything will be done in Orlando in that particular Disney Village, so they won't be traveling from city to city, just so you know. So I think Orlando's capable. David, what are your thoughts about the NBA returning under the Orlando bubble?
I tend to lean with what Rick said. I think this is a rush job. Once Major League Baseball started talking about the fact that they could come back and that they could sustain, and we've talked about this, you guys, about maybe playing in Arizona or playing in Florida or what they had proposed, the NBA and the NHL, and I know we're going to talk about that too, they all of a sudden perked their ears up, and it was like, well, if Major League Baseball can do it, well, then so can we. I think it's a rush job. I'm concerned. All it's going to take is another outbreak where players are sick again, and we've had this instance. We've had players in the NBA and executives who have tested positive. It's a cluster of the worst proportion right this moment.
Yeah, I know that the Chinese league started it, and they ran back in the COVID-19 situation, and that threw things out of whack. So if you base everything on what happened in China, then I think the NBA is setting themselves up for a repeat scenario.
I definitely agree.
What about you?
Yeah, and with all those players around and all together, and whether they travel or don't travel, this virus feeds off big, large groups, and it's just, and basketball's such a contact sport, so, I mean, to me, it's just a bad idea.
All right, well, with that said, let's go out to the sport that plays on the frozen pond called hockey, and at least they'll have more equipment, and it'll be a lot colder, so I kind of wonder whether the disease would transmit as much in the National Hockey League as it would in the NBA, since you have more equipment, and it's a lot cooler. Rick, why don't you chime in on the sport that you don't like, consider all the physicality involved in it?
Well, I mean, I have nothing against hockey. I mean, it's a great sport. I'm just not really, it's not my thing. But I mean, like I said, it's with all sports right now. It's just too dangerous. It's just, it's a contact sport. You can have all those people all around hitting each other, and I mean, to me, it's just the NHL is doing a great job of actually the union and the players actually talking, unlike baseball, who's done a horrific job trying to deal with all this. But at the same time, it's just too risky. You're going to get players who are going to get contacted with this. They're going to get exposed to this. They'll test positive for this, and they just kind of just need it. To me, I've been saying this for many, many months. I've been getting bashed for it, but they need to shut down all sports for this year and focus on 2021. It's all about people's safety right now.
David?
Yeah, I agree. Scott, you make a really interesting point. The equipment issue, the cold issue, the weather, the climate issue maybe changes it a little bit. But I agree with Rick. This is, and I hate saying this because, you and I we deal with football, and we're excited about the season starting and the potential for us to, cover games. The safety of everybody involved has to be first, and I wonder how bad it's going to be and how bad the leagues will be set back if they do this, and then all of a sudden they have something malicious happen. Not malicious, but something really bad happen where multiple players get sick. And what if, God forbid, the worst happens? Tragedy, it's not worth a tragedy. And I know that all three of us can agree to that.
No question about it. I mean, the NBA is talking about a potential Game 7 in October the 12th with the draft shortly after that. Then all of a sudden they're back at it. Forget about not only the COVID thing. I think the body needs a fair amount of time to heal. And I don't think 2 months gets it done based on what these guys do. Let's not kid ourselves. NBA athletes are
especially with hockey.
Especially
with hockey.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's true. Yeah. Hockey could start, though, in January, and it really wouldn't matter. Basketball, they want to make sure that they're playing by Christmas Day because that's their big day. So I think there's a lot of intricacies involved with both of those scenarios for sure.
Right.
Both from a physical standpoint, equipment and all that. So, but the NBA is looking at a potential Game 7 on October the 12th. Hockey, they have a 24-team format, but I think what they're looking to do, which makes a lot more sense, is they're going directly into the playoffs. It's what they are, and they're letting the other teams go home. You're done. The seasons are over, and that's it. Where basketball, they're talking about playing scenarios, more games. So they need a lot of work to get that plan doable, manageable, so that it even makes sense. There's been talk about 30 teams playing. Again, we'll have more of an idea by the end of the week, but right now, as it stands, the NBA is looking at 22 teams. The NHL is looking at 24. The NHL, I think, is further along with it, and Gary Bettman's done an unbelievable job. But I got to give Adam Silver credit. He's the one that was proactive and shut the NBA down first, and that's what set the domino effect for what would ultimately lead to all the other sports taking place. With that said, you guys touched on it, so now we'll get into it. Baseball is in a put-up or shut-up situation. And the players want to play 114 games, collecting 70% of their money, whereas the owners are looking at maybe 50 games and about 34%. Folks, I'm not a math major, but that's well over half the compensation. So you have to wonder, is baseball trying to save face by even having a 50 to 60 game scenario? Because right now this situation is ugly, and this could set the sport back ages if there is no baseball at all in 2020. All right, Rick, since it's one of the few sports you really know more about than the others, okay, we'll let you go ahead and talk about the one sport you do know. So go ahead, Rick.
That was a drive-by.
Oh, that's okay. He's used to it, so it doesn't matter.
This is like Keystone Cops. It is so absurd. I mean, they're all going to lose money. They all know they're going to lose money. The proposals from either side has been laughable. I saw the players. I said this thing is dead on arrival on my last podcast. They might as well just, ball it up and throw in the trash because that ain't going to fly because everyone's going to lose money. Again, they need to just forget about the 2020 season, focus on 2021. It's just too risky. They can't even get together on games right now. And, maybe they need to take a lesson from the NBA or the NHL on how to negotiate and talk. And right now it's just been really toxic right now. And it's just like I said, they can't even get together on how to get a season to go. And then you got this horrible virus going around that's killing and getting people sick. So, I mean, it's just, they just need to shut it down.
See, Dave, what you have to understand about Rick Curti is he has two hats. He's got the ranting hat, which he's very good at, and we always know he's good at it. And once in a while, he's expected to be a journalist, okay? That doesn't mean a writer, which he obviously doesn't care to do anyways.
There's a difference.
But he actually does research every once in a while when he's called upon to do it, and he does a pretty good job. And Rick knows we all have a lot of fun with his journalistic capabilities or incapabilities, depending on what he's asked to do. So, but we all know that we have a lot of fun with that, right, Rick?
Absolutely.
All he has to do is talk and tweet, and then we're good enough. We got a machine there. So with that said, okay, David, what's your take on the baseball situation, since that's one of the two sports you primarily cover?
Yeah,
of course, we saw the NASCAR side of you before we hit the road, which surprised me. Go ahead, David.
Nice. This is something that I've been covering quite a bit, mainly because we're in Jacksonville, and the Marlins AA affiliate is affected by this. Kent Abbey's going to lose a lot of money if they don't do minor league baseball. The Marlins are going to have to deal with a taxi squad of 20 players. Well, who are those 20 prospects? You got a 30-man roster. Well, who's he going to draw from? I kind of tend to agree with Rick that if they don't get things solved, this is a chess match. Remember, we were talking about 82 games, and then you and I were talking the other day, well, it's 114, and we knew that the owners would immediately veto this. There's no way that they're going to, so they counterpoint and say, well, let's do 50. So we're getting back to somewhere where we back to 80, 82 games where they're trying to reach a median. And by the way, Scott, I'm not a mathematician either, and that's why I do this for a living, because I can't, put two and two together. But I do know that
well, we all know. Hey, hold on, David. Let's not kid ourselves. Anybody that's good at English isn't any good at math. And if it weren't for the fact that I have calculators, I'd be in deep trouble. Exactly. And I don't want to get into an old story because I'm getting into my childhood a little bit. But once upon a time when I was in elementary school, I bought a calculator over at Cunningham's Drugs, and back then it was $40, which was probably about 6 weeks worth of allowance. I had it confiscated. Didn't see it till the end of the year, and that was the Texas Instruments back then. So getting onto the topic at hand, had to go back to childhood, and that'll be a prelude for what my yesteryear is about later on. But go ahead, David, continue.
I love baseball, and I get emotional about it. Yes, Rick, there is crying in baseball every once in a while.
I love baseball. I'm sad.
I want baseball to be there because it's all the right reasons. I know that they're losing money, but there's also this theory out there that the owners would rather shut it all down and save face than having to go through all this, and I'm going to use the word crap because it is, dealing with player salaries and who gets what and what's prorated. And, like I said, I'm not a math guy, but they would rather shut the season down, not play at all, save face, cut their losses, and start over in 2021. It's a crying shame for the fans. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
This could be done. I'm going to take the NFL out of it because the NFL has a pretty good idea of what they're going to do. And they're going to probably do it without fans to begin with, even though I read stories that they want to start with fans in the stands. The Major League Baseball can do this. They can play without the fans. They can get 80 games in. If both sides would stop acting like little children on a playground, and stop playing Red Rover, they could get this done and we could get an 80-game season in, and everybody should be happy.
Yeah, but the owners aren't looking to lose $640,000 a game. And Scott Boras doesn't care if the owners go broke. After all, he only has 71 clients, so he said, I don't have no sympathy for the owners. Let them pay for other pay. Well, just because you got 71 players, at last I heard, there's an awful lot more than 71 players playing Major League Baseball, so nobody cares about Scott Boras, and no owner's looking to lose $640,000 a game. Sorry, whether you're matching this or not, it doesn't take rocket science to figure that out.
Scott.
Yeah,
and this is where we can identify with it. Us being you and I and Rick, because we are the common man. For the player who is making $7 million, he doesn't want a third of his contract. He doesn't want half of his contract because it's still money he's losing and it's taking that away from him. And he doesn't know if it's not a guaranteed contract and next year he gets injured, he has nothing. So to a billionaire who owns a baseball team, that money's nothing. The owner thinks, well, I'm being gracious and I'm giving the player half his salary because I'm playing half a season, and that should be enough for him. It's a chess match back and forth. You and I will never see $3.7 million, in a year's time, unless we win a lottery. So we think both sides are being completely unreasonable. So there's that concept to it too. The fans really don't give a damn about the money part. They just want to see baseball. They want these guys to, stop crying because they're well paid and they get to play a kid sport and just play the game. Stay safe, but play the game. Makes
sense. Rick? Journalist time.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Journalist time.
Okay. let me put on my hat.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, put on my hat.
Got a Charlotte Pats hat on.
I agree. They're both being childish. It's all about money. It's all That's what is it always? It's always about money. The players don't want to lose money. The owners don't want to lose money. So they're like just fighting about who we're not going to lose money. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And us fans are like, man, you guys are multi-millionaires. You're playing a game. You're grown men. And, you're making millions and millions of dollars. Just shut up and play the game. And they can't even do that because it's all about money. Nobody wants to lose here. The owners don't want to lose. The players don't want to lose. Both proposals are pretty much a joke. And, I mean, they can't even get to the table and negotiate about a season, and then you got this virus going around. So, like I said, unfortunately, as much as this pains me to say, there will be no baseball for 2020.
Well, it is laughable without doubt. And you know what? With all due respect, I think they have a do-or-die date or drop-dead date, and they've got to have it within the next 1 or 2 weeks or forget it. I mean, we're coming down to crunch time. We really are.
I do believe it's a week away.
Do you?
I believe that. Yeah, I do. I believe that's a week away.
But you know who's happy through all this? The Houston Astros. No one has to beat them.
Oh, that's funny.
Nice.
Good job. All right. Look at that, Mr. Curti. Yeah, that's true. They won't get no black and blue marks because they're going to get dinged all over the place. And Dusty Baker won't have a hit out on any of his players as they get older. Boy, Mr. Curti.
They won't worry about getting beamed.
Mr. Curti comes up with an Astros analogy. All right, well, we
I hate the Astros.
We better let him go ahead and quit while he's ahead on baseball and get to the real meat of this broadcast tonight. And that's the unfortunate tragedy that surrounded George Floyd on Memorial Day. Now, I want to say that we are paying tribute to him to some extent, but the incident in Minneapolis was a straw that broke the camel's back. I've been to Minneapolis many times. Great people over there. They really are good Midwestern people. But you can have all these incidents all over the place, but at what point or another do you reach a breaking point? Folks, we reached that breaking point when Derek Chauvin went ahead and kneeled on top of George Floyd, and when you go ahead and do it for several minutes and the man loses his breathing, compound the problem with 2 police officers holding down his legs while another one's a spectator, you've got yourself a big problem. The full weight of a cop on top of an innocent man breaking the neck, and anytime you have an situation with the neck, the back, or a spine, that's dangerous. And I've had one neck operation and back surgery, and that is brutal stuff. So, all right, Rick, what are your thoughts about what happened with Derek Chauvin putting the full weight on the late George Floyd?
Well, I think people can now kind of understand why Kaepernick was doing what he's doing, because now you saw a police officer with his knee on someone's neck and being held down. Was it like 8 minutes, 9 minutes? The guy couldn't breathe. While this other idiot police officer was just standing there. None of these guys should have been police officers. I'm glad they got fired immediately. All 4 should be charged, in my opinion, with second-degree murder. It's a travesty what happened. It really is. And it shouldn't have happened, Whatever George Floyd did, we don't know. We keep hearing I keep hearing it's a counterfeit check. It was a counterfeit 20. It doesn't matter. You just arrest them, you put them in the police car, you book them, just like anybody else. You don't sit on the guy's neck for several minutes while the guy can't breathe. And we already saw this already. And we've been seeing it before. So it's a travesty. It's sad. These guys never should have been police officers. And Chauvin had like 15, 16 prior.
Well, he had 18. Actually, he
him.
had 18 prior situations. So
yeah.
He had a track record for sure.
Yeah. So it's just he should never have been a police officer. And I hope all 4 of them rot in jail for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, what happened with Chauvin is I believe he's been charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter for now. Again, that's what we've seen now. I have a feeling that third-degree charge will be changed to a higher classification, but they're just trying to get their facts in order so that they make the change, and more people are going to get involved for sure. So there's still a lot more to... So, David, what's your take on this whole incident?
Well, like we talked about before, and this is where I really appreciate the fact that you and I get to do, pre-prep and everything. It's a travesty all around. First of all, it's taking a man's life that didn't need to be taken. And regardless of the situation like we discussed, and he did, from what I understand, whatever it was, he did commit a crime. But there's no reason for somebody's life to be taken for that. It escalates to a situation where people react. There are innocent people that are hurt. There are people that are harmed. Lives are shaken. Businesses are taken. It is a mushroom cloud. and yes, it's the tip of the iceberg, and it's the straw that, whatever analogy or cliche you want to use. I didn't think I would get to a point in my lifetime where I would see racial tension take a step back again. And you've been seeing it kind of brew, but I didn't think it would be like this over the last few days. We talked about right before we went on the show, I've got kids that I worry about that are out, doing their normal thing. I have friends who are protesting peacefully, and I hope that it doesn't escalate. I have people that I know that have had businesses that have been damaged because of rioters and looters and all kinds of sickening things where it takes on a mind of its own. It's escalated into something where it was trying to make a point about somebody's dash and has become something just much worse that we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question the meaning that it's taken on. When you think of all the incidents that have taken place over the years, I know George Zimmerman was one here in Florida. I think, David, you've heard about that. And Rodney King, I believe, shut down L.A. And there's so many other ones. I don't want to leave any out, but those are the two that come into mind. You would think that you would learn from these sort of things, but let me tell you, unfortunately, we've hit to a point where, at what point would it take an incident like this to for the country to break apart? This one here, as I mentioned before, was a straw that broke the camel's back, and now we have double jeopardy. We have a COVID-19 and now racial tensions, to me, that are like nothing we've ever seen before. That's just totally unfortunate.
I agree.
So let's talk about Minnesota for a moment. There is no death penalty there, although I'm going to ask you guys a question that I never thought I would ask you, but judging by the flow of this conversation, I'm going to put you guys out on a limb. Rick, do you believe that there should be a death penalty in every state? Or what are your thoughts of the death penalty?
Oh, I support the death penalty. We have a moratorium in our death penalty in North Carolina where they still have people on death row, but they can't execute people due to the drugs that when the one side said it's inhumane, the other said no, it's not. So we've been having this fight for many years, and so our death penalty, we have a moratorium on it. But I support the death penalty. I think there's people out there that do horrible things. You got people out there like a Ted Bundy, or people who kill kids, or people who go and kill police officers, or people who do just horrible things that are never going to get redeemed. So I support the death penalty. I've always supported the death penalty, and I think every state should have one.
David?
Okay, so my mother's going to be very proud of me because I have a criminal justice degree, and I'm finally going to use it on radio. Seriously. I studied criminal justice and worked in the legal system before I got back into writing. Unfortunately, I started out working baby death and first-degree murder cases. I think people that do things like that deserve what they get. I believe that there should be consequences for your actions. Do I think that there should be a uniform system? Yes. If you kill somebody inhumanely, you deserve to die. And I hate taking that stance, but I know that if it was my son instead of George Floyd, I want justice to be served to the highest extent of the law. Just horrible things that come out of this. Nobody really wins. Even the families that are, shall we say, vindicated, there really isn't a winner in this.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I definitely am all for the death penalty. We have it in the state of Florida. I don't believe life in prison. I really don't. The taxpayers are paying money to support these criminals, and you talk about overcrowding in the jails. To me, that's one of those type of things where death penalty all the way, hands down, no ifs, ands, or buts. With that said, though, I think what will happen with Derek Chauvin is this will take care of itself. Either he will commit suicide or somebody in jail, prison, will take care of it for the Floyd family. But Derek Chauvin will get killed no matter what. And this will govern itself inside or be handled internally. As we like to say in baseball, okay, there's that written rule or unwritten rule that we need to handle certain things on our own. Well, this is one of those things that will handle by itself. So now we've got 4 cops involved in this incident. In general, no charges have been filed at the moment. We know one of them has. The other three are TBDs. Okay, so let's talk about the two guys that held Mr. Floyd's feet down. Go ahead, Rick.
I just don't know what in the world what was going through their mind when they was going through this. I just don't understand why not only sit on the guy's neck, but to hold him down like that while this other guy just watched. They kept saying he resisted arrest, but there's proof that he didn't. We don't know what was going on through them. I have no idea. I mean, they all need to be charged. To me, it should have been second-degree murder. I think eventually that's what's going to happen because an independent autopsy did come out, and it did say what we all know, that he died of suffocation. So we all know what was the reason he died. You can say he had medical issues and all that. The man had a knee on his neck and he couldn't breathe.
But what about the other cops, though, Rick?
And so all need to be charged, all need to be prosecuted, all four never should have been police officers because many of them had multiple violations against them. And hopefully they'll rot in prison for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Chauvin committed the crime, and boy, did he pay for it in a lot of ways. His wife automatically filed for divorce the next day. Now I know she wants to change her name with good reason, and she doesn't want anything from the guy. But, we talk about Chauvin. He's going to get his due no matter what. The other two that were on his legs, then the other guy who watched. I know that they'll probably get lesser crimes, but to what extent, again, this is all a TBD. But, David, what's your take on this whole thing?
I think that there are a lot of layers to this that are going to, that basically news people are going to unwrap for weeks. As more information comes out and how it was handled, and we learn step by step how this process happened, from the time he was arrested to the time, the 9 minutes ended with shoving knee on his neck, people's views are going to change. No matter what happens with the way people's views change, the fact remains that there are three people that were directly involved with somebody's death. And I think that there's some reality television to it as well. Granted, this would be a situation where it would gain national attention no matter what. But if it hadn't been for a police officer who's got his knee on some guy's neck with his hands in his pockets looking at the camera like he's Dirty Harry, this may not be as magnified as it has been. Image is everything. Visualization is everything. It's that image that we're going to remember, forever, of this guy just kind of nonchalantly killing this guy, and that's what escalates it. We've seen pictures of African American men running away from cops and cops shooting them. I think there was one that was in Georgia. The one from a few weeks ago where he was jogging and the two men in rural Georgia killed him. The images and the way that the media covers it has to do with how we react, which has led to violence and rioting and looting and destruction and death and chaos. For some reason, I have to think that George Orwell is spinning in his grave right now after writing 1984 and Animal Farm, because he was right. It's a really bad situation our country's in right now.
Well, you said the key words, David, images. I mean, you're right. If I wanted to take images, you got social media, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether you have Twitter, and there's a million other ones I'm probably not talking about. But if you want to go images, why don't you talk about what happened with ISIS? Boy, those are eerie thoughts, too, about what happened to those innocent individuals that were killed. They were beheaded. I mean, that to me falls into that category. Go ahead.
The way that we cover news now, Scott, as opposed to the way that we did it 10 years ago, is so much different.
Oh, yeah.
Because our thirst for the obscene, and I use that word loosely, but we're all guilty of it. We want gore and as much coverage, and who can get the picture on the television or on the social media or on the camera phone or the cell phone quicker. It's a competition. it's just made things 10 times worse.
So let's go back to the 4 cops. We know what's going to happen with Chauvin, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with the one guy that watched it and the other 2 that stood on his. What type of charges? I know we're only speculating right now. Do you think that the 2 guys that were standing on his legs would get?
All 3 of them are going to be charged with accessory. They have to be.
Okay.
I'm going to say the 2 that were involved in the actual physical altercation, they're going to have manslaughter charges because Chauvin had manslaughter charges. It depends on, first of all, corroboration's a great thing. I know they haven't been charged yet. But the 2 guys that aided and abetted could turn on Chauvin for a lesser charge. Remember that, too.
Right.
So, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, hey, Mom, how am I doing, by the way? But seriously, it is, there's a lot of layers to this. There could be multiple charges. There could be 4, 5, 6 charges that could constitute, one individual, or constitute a series of events towards one individual. I didn't think I would get into playing, CNN legal analyst on a sports show. So I'm trying to be as simply factual about it because I don't know. We haven't heard from anybody. So
well,
what they were involved with. They haven't spoken to an attorney or anybody. So, trying to go through that route too.
I'll take it to this level. I never thought I'd be watching CNN and watching Fox News preparing for a sports show, but I really are.
Yeah, you're right. It's a scary. This is scary stuff.
If you think I'm going to stick my reputation on the line talking about this subject matter, you rest assured that I want to know everything that I can, both not only what I hear on Fox News and CNN, but while we watch some of the other ESPN programs as well, some of the ones that Curti certainly doesn't like, unless they're tame. But Golick and Wingo, I've gotten their opinion on that, which I think has been helpful. Get Up with Mike Greenberg, Mr. New York Jet, but once in a while brings on some guests that are worthwhile, although he's more factual than Stephen A. and Max Sellerman. Well, hey, they actually showed a human side, but we're not going to promote them. But with that said, yeah, there are definitely, although I probably already did, but who cares? It is what it is.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's called an indirect promotion through insanity.
Exactly.
So, but that's okay. When you're on a broadcast like tonight, insanity is okay. That's why all 3 of us are doing this thing. But anyways, with that said, as far as the 4 cops, we'll know what their charges are soon enough. And I think that we have a majority here that we all believe in the death penalty, and I think it's inevitable that the 3rd-degree murder charge is going to get changed. And let me tell you, when you put the full weight on top of a neck, like Mr. Chauvin did,
right?
Let me tell you. Like you said, David, images are there, and I think we've got Candy who's about to get involved, and she's got some things to say.
Okay, so Mr. Levin, you with your legal mind here. So in Minnesota, the reason why they went with a 3rd degree is the fact that you have to unequivocally prove that Chauvin premeditated for murder to go to up to number 2. And I don't think you can do that with this, and that's why they charged him with 3, and that's why everybody's outraged, because they think automatically he should get, the 1st. But to qualify for some in the different states, they have different laws regarding what manslaughter is, what 1, 2, 3, what all those are. One of the things that we talk about the pandemic and how the pandemic has changed things and how there's new things. Well, one of the things that I just read that I thought was very interesting online is that the Minneapolis school board has decided to nullify their contract with all police.
Wow.
So there's a domino effect that we don't always see or think about when these actions happen.
Yeah, the Minnesota Vikings and the University of Minnesota Gophers, I don't think they're going to have anything to do with the Minneapolis Police Department as well. So there's a bigger domino effect that we even realize that we haven't even talked about. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about we don't trust you guys to protect our citizens. Why would we want you to cause any disturbances while we're actually playing games? So there's another layer that we're glad that Candy brought up with the schools that now translates over to the field of play. So with that said, while Candy's decided to join the broadcast, she's staying on the broadcast
Didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, we love it when Candy's on. I'll tell you, we have ourselves 4 wheels on this incredible broadcast, and wait till she comes on tomorrow night, possibly. So with that said, Rick, you alluded to Colin Kaepernick. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about Mr. Kaepernick. Was he ahead of his time kneeling when everything took place before?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was talking about racial injustice and all this, and first he sat, and then apparently I think he said that a soldier told him that, why don't you just kneel during the protest? And so he started kneeling, and so it's kind of synonymous. Here he had him kneeling about racial injustice, and we had this horrible police officer kneeling on a guy's neck, killing him. So I thought it was very... and he was ahead of his time. And so, and that's what he's been talking about all along, that, look, there's so much injustice going on, and it's unfortunately by race, and so I think a lot of people are now listening to looking at him, and, NFL, again, the hypocritical NFL, as they like to do, so, he was ahead of his time, absolutely, and people are going to remember him for what he did, and now people are saying you're outraged by his kneeling, but you're not outraged by this, and it makes you think. Yeah, you're right. They're absolutely right.
Well, so, from what I
very ahead of his time.
Yeah, from what I understand, the NFL would have lost about 20% revenue had he been employed again. So there's obviously a financial part of this. David, I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. 1, was he ahead of his time? And 2, do you think he's as good as any quarterback there is, whether it's a starter or a backup? Answer the first one so we're consistent, and then follow up with the second part.
I'm going to answer your first one, but I'm going to add to it, Scott, if that's
okay. Sure.
I don't know if he's necessarily ahead of his time. I think what he did was he was calculating. He made sure that people fully understood what he was doing. He identified an issue that we've talked about for years. This is nothing new that we have talked about. He found a way to bring it to light. So, yeah, maybe he is technically ahead of his time. What I'm now worried about with this is you're going to see a lot more African-American men taking knees during football games again because of this.
Well, that's fair.
That's number 1. Number 2, is he repeat the question? How you want me?
Well, sure. I mean, do you feel that with all the quarterbacks out there, because everybody knows you need 2 good quarterbacks in this league, do you think that Colin Kaepernick deserves a spot on an NFL roster? And is he as good, if not better, than a lot of the quarterbacks that are out there? Remember, we still have Cam Newton, who's unemployed, and Colin Kaepernick was playing at a high level.
I think. Okay, how about this? I think I'm going to put Cam Newton aside. I think Colin Kaepernick can still play football in the NFL.
Okay.
I think that he is better than a lot of the back. I can tell you that he's better than probably 80% of the backups that are on the NFL teams.
Okay.
I can tell you that I think he could start for 5 or 6 NFL teams right now, and honest to God, he probably could start for the one you and I cover. And I hate saying that because I love Minshew.
Yep.
And I also think because of this unrest, he may wind up getting back in the league this year.
Really? And
by the way, now that's on tape. And I had just thought that just popped in my mind. Think about this though: 2 polarizing African American quarterbacks, Colin Kaepernick and Cam Newton. They're polar opposite in what they do. Kaepernick talks about racial equality and justice. Cam Newton's flashy and brash and maybe says the wrong things every once in a while, and it's all about him. And both of them are looking for work. What does that tell you?
Well, what tells me is Cam Newton better grow up.
Well, that too, but...
Well, I mean, you're asking me what it told me. I'm telling you. I think Kaepernick could play in the league. There's no question about it. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get an outside chance. All right, Candy, what are your thoughts about Colin Kaepernick?
Okay, so was he ahead of it? David, were you done?
Go ahead.
So, Colin Kaepernick, I would not say was ahead of his time. I applaud him for taking a stand. I just believe he did it in the wrong fashion because I believe taking a kneel during the anthem was almost a disrespect to our military that have fought for our freedoms. But I stand there with him that he needed to bring. He was one of the ones that has always brought out and has constantly stayed consistent, standing out against racism.
Okay.
And for that, for there to be change, it has to come from all of us. And I think we, as people, we look to sports. We look to the big names of the game. So you're looking for your NFL quarterbacks. You're looking for your MVPs of Major League Baseball or of the other leagues to help take a stand and help try to lead us. Because I think kids and young people look up to them. And let's face it, we can't look up right now to our president. So we need to look up at others.
Look at this. This is a curveball of a magnet.
Love it.
But I also would agree that Colin Kaepernick is better than many of all the backups and quite a few of the first time,
rookies.
Not even just the rookies. Some of the other quarterbacks in the league.
Right.
Maybe it's right team, right. Let's face it. Tannehill, I would not have said before he made the change.
Well, Mitchell Trubisky might be one that you could probably lump in that category. There are probably a lot of them, but how about that? We got Candy Ebling here to go out there and throw a fastball right by us with the President of the United States. Who would have thunk that in our lifetime? Look at this.
Hey, Scott, did you duck on that one?
I actually did.
Okay,
She's
cool.
powerful. So,
Wow.
I think Colin Kaepernick could play in the league, considering what's out there. There's no question about it. And I'd be hard-pressed to think that maybe there might be open minds now based on what's taking place. The question is what owner will take the Kaepernick plunge? I'm actually whether Shad Khan would consider doing something like that. I don't see it happening in Miami.
No.
Are you saying no? Or are you begging for that no?
Can I say this? And this is well, no. Okay, there was a rumor, and there was a rumor that floated around for a while whether Kaepernick would be considered in Jacksonville based on Blake Bortles' performance. It was never founded. But can you imagine in 2017 or 2018 Colin Kaepernick playing for this team at the time and what it would do? Jacksonville's a military town.
Right.
It is.
That's a team that would never. That's a team that's trying to recover from all the crap from the last 2 years. It'd be so far down the totem pole, they'd be like halfway to China still trying to get back up.
Well, you're
It's
talking.
not,
You're talking to a guy that actually thought that Tim Tebow should have played there, and he made the Rex Ryan sales decision to go to New York. How did that work out for Tim Tebow? Well, Tim Tebow gets the guns cap, and when
beast, you know that though.
What's that?
It's a different beast.
I know, but I'm just making a point. I actually wrote a story and sent it to Dan Edwards, and he liked the story when I thought Tim Tebow should have been there to put butts in the stands. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know it's a military town, but also they're desperate to try to win, and you wonder because of everything that's taken place whether they might look the other way. Again, that's all pure speculation, and we all have opinions. But, I love this conversation and dialogue we're having with Colin Kaepernick. I think he was ahead of his time. I still believe that the kneeling during the national anthem might have been a little bit more of a stretch for what I'm able to do, because anything that directly affects the national anthem, I'm not overly sold on it, but I understand why he did it. And I think a lot more people throughout the different platforms are acknowledging Colin Kaepernick in a much more positive fashion after the fact than they did before the fact. So, any of you guys want to add to the Kaepernick discussion?
Can I ask this question then?
Sure.
Real quick, though. But do you agree that because of what is going on right now, you're going to see more football players take a knee because they're going to say Kaepernick was right?
No question about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There'll be less resistance there. Of course, we don't know how long the President of the United States will be in office. Come November, we'll have a much better feel when it's all said and done.
Right.
But, and I'll be curious to see how some of his actions play out over the next couple weeks based on the adversity that once again is in front of him.
Right.
And I promise to not talk politics, but there comes a point where you do have to incorporate it to some extent in this equation, and we're all able to do it in a very dignified way.
I'm also curious to see whether Kaepernick has anything to say about this in the next week or so.
Well, I think he's going to wait and see. And then I think,
right.
I remember the old thing that when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Well, we'll see whether Colin Kaepernick talks, people listen. Yeah, I don't know.
Holy cow.
Yeah, well, whatever. I had to get that E.F. Hutton reference in there. But I think Colin Kaepernick is probably laughing all the way to the bank, realizing, hey, I wasn't as dumb as I looked. I mean, Muhammad Ali a long time ago took some heat for not going to Vietnam, and Muhammad Ali is revered as one of the greatest heroes of all time, and certainly an idol of mine. And I had the thankful opportunity to meet him, but I don't want to get off track too much. But I think Colin Kaepernick could conceivably be employed. I wouldn't rule it out, especially with everything that's taken place. I don't want to lose sight of the George Floyd situation because we all know what happened to George Floyd was simply and utmost tragic. I really don't want to lose sight of that, and I think the legal system will play itself out.
You said something really good, Scott.
What's that?
There. You don't want to lose sight of the fact that it is George Floyd who died tragically, and it didn't have to happen. I believe right now people are saying, let's support, we're doing this for George, remember his name. Let's riot or let's protest. Let's do this. People have already forgotten. They're doing it for other causes. Nobody's thinking about George Floyd when they're looting a Target and stealing, 42-inch televisions, or they're burning down, a elderly man's barber shop who worked, for 40 years to build. They're not thinking about George Floyd. They're thinking about themselves, and that's where the message is lost.
Well, when you got Magic Johnson on CNN, and Candy and I watched it, who was this guy that interviewed him? Was it Wolf?
I don't remember.
Wolf Blitzer?
Wolf Blitzer, thank you. Hey, I actually got one of these right. Wolf Blitzer talking to Magic Johnson on CNN. I'm doing my homework about this broadcast and the two that'll be coming up. And then how often does Magic Johnson go on CNN talking about an issue of this magnitude? Think about it.
But that's what we need
and how
more
often
of.
Does Michael Jordan open his mouth because he doesn't? You know that. He doesn't want to lose shoe sales.
Oh, that's true. I don't want to get into Michael Jordan. I got overkilled with that last
No,
dance
I know,
thing.
but still, the fact that he opened his mouth yesterday is a big deal. I mean, it really is.
Well, I didn't have a grudge against Isaiah Thomas, so why don't you have a grudge against a bunch of other people? I don't care. I'm just kidding there. I'm a Detroiter.
I remember his Hall of Fame speech where he bashed Dean Smith.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. I think I pulled this off track.
Photo in 1983, and it's like, dude, who cares?
Yeah, I had to get the Isaiah Thomas thing, but without losing sight of the whole matter, that, there's a lot of things that play out. Now, let's lighten this thing up for a moment here, okay? And I have my wife in the studio, but once upon a time I encountered a Detroit Police Department officer, and I was actually driving down Telegraph Road with my arm around my girlfriend, and an African-American cop wrote me up for a ticket for one arm driving, and that was the most embarrassing ticket I've ever had. Listen, I'm not afraid to admit on live broadcasting that I don't mind admitting I have a lead foot. I would understand the justification for a ticket that. But one arm driving, really? That brother from another mother, nailed me, and that was the most embarrassing ticket I've ever had in my life. Now, you had white versus black, not turning this into racial, but when he looked at my skin with my arm around my girlfriend in Detroit, and Mel Farr was really equipped to handle it, we'll be talking to that on our broadcast Thursday, Curti, so get ready for this again. There's no question when they see black versus white, no matter what side of the uniform you're on, you're going to get stereotyped either way, and that was the most embarrassing ticket I ever had, and my girlfriend felt very bad about it. She really did. I said, well, I guess I'll go to a lot of extremes at the time would love to take that embarrassing ticket, and now here I am talking about it on live radio. Go figure. Can you guys imagine getting a ticket like that?
Candy, how's his driving now?
He definitely has that lead foot. more so than he needs to. And he tells me that he has what's called a California stop, and I'm like, no, that's a Scott stop. That's stopping.
Oh, you mean the rolling stop?
Well, that's it. You're a California guy,
The
Curti.
rolling stop in California where you don't stop. Yeah.
Well, Curti knows about the California stuff. He knew about the Las Vegas stuff like Mark Wilson.
We have it here in North Carolina, too. I saw someone doing that ticket.
Yeah, so...
It's
but
a roll. I've done it.
I can understand the rule, but the one-arm driving ticket, please, seriously, folks, I'll tell you what, Love cost me a little bit of money and nearly got my license suspended over that. That was stupid. Black versus white. I didn't mind black and white TV, but I didn't like that black and white scenario. But any thoughts about one-arm driving? You guys ever going to do it now that you've heard this story?
Never heard of you getting a ticket for one-arm driving.
Well, now you have.
I think the police officer was bored. I think he was bored.
Yeah, I don't know.
He needed to write his quota.
Yeah, that's what I figured. He had to write his quota. He found a perfect idiot to do it with.
He's like, I'm bored. There's nothing to do. Oh, look at this guy. I'll get him for driving, one-arm driving. Why not?
Yeah,
he was Barney Fife, I guess.
Credit to the Detroit Police Department, or I think it was the Detroit Police Department with that. I remember that blue and white car all too well. No, not Detroit Lion blue, folks. I'm talking about navy blue and white. And those are lights I didn't particularly care for. But oh well, trying to lighten up this broadcast with some of my driving. No, not NASCAR style. I don't know what to call that. It's called insane style. All right, with that said, okay, we'll take my driving to one extent to a guy that was in Curti's hometown named O.J. Simpson, who ended up getting off killing two white people, as did his wife, Nicole Brown, and Richard Goldman. So I guess, Mr. Curti, why don't you chime in on whether the race card applies with O.J. Simpson / the two white people that got slain in that situation, the trial of the centuries.
Well, they try to make it a racial issue. It was more of a money issue because the guy had all this money. It had to do with being a celebrity because the guy got treated like a king in prison. I heard he had a fax machine and an exercise bike in his cell, and they threw him a birthday party in jail. So it had a lot more to do with being rich and being famous. And they tried to make it a racial issue, and it's just the man did it. I mean, it's painfully obvious the man did it. And, now he's out of jail for unrelated crime, and, he's living his life in Las Vegas. But he did get away with murder, and just like Johnny Cochran said, he told that jury, you need to send a message. And we all know what that meant. And so that's the way I looked at it, was that, for many, many years, you've seen white people commit atrocities towards African Americans and getting away with it. And now you can send that message back.
Right.
And that's what it was to me, and it was horrible. I remember living in Los Angeles at the time, and it was very divided, racial, and they're saying all these horrible things about Nicole and Brown Goldman. I lost friends over it. Because people were being so disrespectful to them. You had an opinion, you were horrible. Just like now, you say something now, and people just call you a racist, or they call you horrible names, and we can't have dialogue no more. And that's how it was there. And it took many years to finally, get over that. But it was very, very, very divided.
Yeah,
for a long time, and it was sad, and you just could not say anything about it. But the man did it. I mean, DNA don't lie. It's just his behavior, and then just look at the evidence. We unfortunately had to see that whole trial for many, many months on TV because there's nothing else to watch. And the man did it. So it's just obvious the man did it. So, and it's just, you should be lucky he's not on death row right now in California, where I believe he should be.
Yeah, well, not only that, you also talk about the civil trial where he did get where he ended up losing that. And, of course, the incidents in Las Vegas, I think the folks in Las Vegas were definitely looking to get even for what happened in California. So there was some indirect degree of justice. But, yeah, go ahead, Rick. Continue your thought about that. I just want to incorporate those in.
Yeah, so it was just a lot of, it's like right now, it's just a lot of racial tension was there. And and what was funny was that O.J. Simpson was like the last person that spoke up for African American rights. He lived in a very predominantly rich white area. He dated nothing but white women. He was not the poster boy of racial injustice that you see Kaepernick doing. So that's what made it more laughable. As someone said, OJ hasn't been black since 1985.
Yeah, well,
so he really did not embrace his culture very well. But of course, they wanted to make a racial issue because that's all he pretty much had his defense team. And I know Shapiro hated it. That's why Johnny Cochran took the lead, and it became a racial issue. But to me, it was all about if you have money and you're famous, you can get away with it, including murder.
Yeah, like Johnny Cochran said, if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. Those lines will definitely be remember all the time. Of course, we don't, being an LA guy, that the Brentwood area is not the least, is pretty high real estate for sure. David, what are your thoughts about what took place with O.J. Simpson? There's no question he got. I got to tell you, as a young journalist, I covered a Monday Night Football game, and he was there. He was great. It was nice to me, but that was long before all this took place, and he helped me build my confidence. But that's not to condone what he had done to Nicole and Richard Goldman. God, let them rest in peace.
Ron Goldman.
Ronald, Richard, all right, whatever. Maybe I have another Richard Goldman here as a friend of mine on Facebook. How about that? From Detroit, who's a political guy, but that's for another story. Ronald Goldman. Okay, it was an R. Goldman. Anyways, David, with that said, folks, you listen out there, I got to get my Goldman straight, but either way, they're Jewish. Okay, so go figure. So go ahead, David. What are your thoughts about the O.J. Simpson situation?
I think, well, first of all, he's guilty. And as I told you before, it was my last semester in college. And I'm writing my senior thesis because I was going to go to law school, believe it or not. And I followed it in every class, and we wrote about dissertations, and we watched it on TV. It's as good a theater of reality TV and legal issue and negativity all at the same time. He got away with one of the greatest crimes of all time. It's something that we still talk about. It's probably something that's still used as a case study. From what that did as far as set up legal issues, not only, for athletes, for African Americans, for white Americans, for whoever, it set the tone for everybody believing that, number one, you probably can get away with crime, and number two, you are guilty before you're ever innocent. And somehow mixed in between there, he fought the system and won. Whether you want to, a jury of his peers determined he didn't do it. Now, we all surmise he did, but there wasn't enough evidence to convict. Had there never been a glove, he'd probably still be on death row, or probably be dead by now or something like that. It changes the course of legal history, and that's maybe the best thing I can say about it.
Well, don't forget there was some shoddy police work involved as well, and we've talked about police work beginning when we talked about Derek Chauvin, and of course now it comes full circle with shoddy police work in the O.J. Simpson trial. So, no matter how you slice this broadcast, police work is probably definitely the cornerstone of a lot of what took place. George Floyd is dead because of it. O.J. Simpson got away scot-free, because of it. So, that's how it all slices out. Now, since we're on to Los Angeles and we're talking about this type of broadcast, we talked about baseball. I should go ahead and talk about the history of Los Angeles when it comes to race a little bit from a sports standpoint. Jackie Robinson's the one that broke the color barrier for the Dodgers, and boy, that was some incredible thing that he ended up doing. But I also had the good fortune of meeting Al Campanis at the 1981 baseball winter meetings. Al was great, Tom Lasorda, and everybody. The Dodgers had come off winning a World Series, and I think Al was just super nice. The Dodgers people were great, and I have a special place in my heart for them, Lasorda and the group. But where I'm going with this is this. Al Campanis worked with that organization for the better part of 40 years, but I'll never forget that one night. I don't know if you ever saw it, David or Rick, but when Al... Then here you go. All right, so you know where I'm going with that. Knowing that I knew Al Campanis like I did know him, I've never felt worse for an individual than I did Al Campanis, because Ted Koppel gave him every opportunity to just to get out of the trouble that he was in, saying that black people could not manage, and boy, he dug himself a hole. 600 feet deep, and I'm going off the adding 2 digits from 6 feet to 600 feet deep. When we talk about black and white, what were your thoughts about the Ted Koppel, Al Campanis situation? Because we know that other broadcasters like Jimmy the Greek, Rush Limbaugh, and other ones committed career suicide for racial issues. But let's say on point with Al Campanis.
Well, I remember seeing the interview, and he said that African American asked him about if African Americans, if there would ever be an African American manager or could they manage, and he said that they didn't have the mentality to be one. And you're just like, oh, brother. And Ted Koppel gave him every single opportunity. Are you sure? Are you sure that's what you meant? Are you sure? Can you, he did everything, and he just kept saying it, and it was wrong. It was incredibly racist. It was ignorant. We all know that African Americans make terrific head coaches and terrific managers, and it was just you never heard from him again, just like Jimmy the Greek. And so their careers went down the tubes, and that's all they're going to be remembered for. Al Campanis will always be remembered for that Ted Koppel interview, and Jimmy the Greek will always be remembered as, doing the same thing that Al Campanis did. And and once you cross that line, there's no way getting back. Once you say it, it don't matter. You can go and apologize the next day and hold hands with Jesse Jackson or whatever you want to do, but it doesn't matter because that's all people are going to remember for him.
And back then,
in Al Campanis' case, he had every opportunity to apologize or go back and say, "Well, that's not what I meant." He never did, and that's what happened to him.
And back then, they didn't have social media. David, go ahead.
I'll tell you what, it's impactful, and I remember that interview. But what impacted me more than anything was watching Monday Night Football and hearing Howard Cosell call one of the Washington Redskins wide receivers what he did.
Was it Manley? I think was it Manley?
I think he called. It was one of the small wide receivers.
Right.
I don't want to say it.
Right. That's okay. It doesn't matter. But yeah, he did.
But I remember, and I was younger than the Campanis interview. Sitting there with my dad and saying, "Did he really just say that?" Because Howard Cosell at the time was Howard Cosell. He was, he was the best out there, and he had just basically destroyed his career.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Those type of things are impactful.
Don't use the national stage to do it. No, that's okay, because that's exactly what Howard did. And Jimmy the Greek, if I remember right, made a monkey reference. If I thought
right, they both did.
Yeah, it was bad. And back then, you imagine if you had social media, how bad it would have been. Oh my goodness!
Right. And that was what I was going to say too, Scott. They didn't have the I don't know what to say, the bonus of having social media. If some of the things happened today that they happened in the 70s and 80s with social media,
right?
The United States, honest to God, would be in more unrest than it is now. And there would be more crime, and there would be more political and racial issues than there are. And there's no way of avoiding, and there's no way of defending that. So, wow.
Yeah, no, it's unreal.
I'm very charged right now because of all this. It's aggravating me. Not the conversation. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm upset because it feels like we have taken such a step back in the last few weeks that, the good Lord has put it out there that we have a racial divide. There's problem with communication. We listen to people and we take things that they say the wrong way. We react before we really hear what people are telling us. If we all would just take a minute and breathe and actually listen before we react, things would be a heck of a lot easier. I have kids that I want to grow up in a peaceful, community and life, and I don't know if that happens now.
Well, David,
things have never changed.
Candy just bailed you out again. She found the reference that you're looking for. We don't want you to go off the broadcast tonight and think of who it was. Candy bailed you out for the zillionth time.
Alvin Garrett.
Thank you. No, I knew it was one of the wide receivers.
Right. So she'll give you the quote, by the way, of what Cosell. What was it?
Yeah.
Look at that little monkey run.
I knew there was a monkey reference involved.
I just didn't want to. I don't feel comfortable saying it. I know what he said.
Well,
but yes, thank you.
But it doesn't matter. We're here to educate too, and that's where. Well, and I go back to the Cal Campanis. If you say anything on national television, you can say goodbye to your career, and that's what we're bringing. We're not trying to elaborate on something that doesn't apply, because this is a thing that goes back to what the Civil War. Of course, Martin Luther King. You have his visitor center out in Atlanta, and there's so many layers that we're not going to get into. But when you go ahead and make such major mistakes on a national stage, holy moly!
Oh, you're done. You're done. It's not. There's no way of getting around it.
Right.
You're done. And it's probably, it's just going to sound weird. For a while, I thought I would do broadcast journalism. And some of the things that I've seen over the years and how people project themselves or present themselves turned me away more towards print journalism. We don't, but believe it or not, boys and girls who are much younger than us, there was print journalism before there was social media and there was the internet. Where we wrote things and we typed things up on typewriters and stuff like that. It shied me away from it because I'm not the most graceful person talking, so writing is a lot better than speaking it. Because I know I probably screw up 2 or 3 times.
Well, it doesn't
in
matter.
my lifetime.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I actually had the good fortune of starting out at ABC Radio when I was 16, 17. And I took on the writing. But not to get off subject, guys, I know we've talked a lot about a lot of different angles, and the one common denominator here is not only shoddy police work, but the fact that there's always been a lot of racial injustices over the years, no matter what level they're on. And getting back to the Floyd thing, I just think that as we summarize the Minneapolis incident was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's what set off this firestorm of controversy around the country. And take that with the pandemic, and boy, you talk about 2020. I'm sure a lot of folks out there wish December 31st, 2020 was right now, instead of we have to go through another 6 months of this.
I'd like to give I'd love to give the year 2020 a Snickers right now because we all.
Yeah.
This is the worst year I've ever been through in my whole entire life. It's just it goes from bad to worse. Pandemic, now racial tensions, and there was already racial tensions to begin with our president. So it's just unfortunate. It's just multiplied. I mean, we're still getting over the incident in Georgia with the jogger, which was, to me, was just so egregious. And then you see another egregious act shortly after. And it's just I understand people's frustrations, but at the same time, you got people out there taking advantage of it, destroying things and taking things. They could care less about Floyd. They can care less about Rodney King. They can care less about anything. That's what's getting lost in all that.
Well, the bottom line is everybody's fed up, and this is, as I said, the straw that broke the camel's back in relation to the other incidents that you're talking about. Why did I bring up O.J. Simpson on this broadcast? Only because of the fact that you had a situation where you had a black man killing 2 white people, as what you did, whereas before you had a white cop. Again, we're talking about the racial boundaries that led to tragedies, no matter how you slice the whole thing. And the kneeling thing certainly, and the images that you alluded to, David, certainly describe where we're at this present time. So I know that we've talked a lot. Candy, what else do you want to add?
I just want to say I think that it's really kind of hard for us to be talking about all the inequalities that there are when we're not. I mean, I hate to say this, but I mean, I've never grown up with a black person or in their shoes to know what kind of injustices are being done against them. I've never been in their shoes. So it's really hard. I mean, I get there is so many inequalities in this world. I mean, for the longest time, there were inequalities against women. And I know women have come a long ways. But I honestly, I urge everybody to talk to somebody of a different race and ask them what their world is like. Because I think until we do that, until we actually listen and hear what their world is like, we're not going to do much to change it.
When you think about the fact that you have 16% of the population are African Americans, about 60% are Caucasian whites, and then the rest gets filled in by the non-Americans per se, you realize why minorities are exactly what they are, and black lives do indeed matter. They really do. And that's all there is to it. When I think about black lives, I know that when we're in the military, we have African Americans alongside of Caucasian Americans fighting for the same thing, and that's our freedom. And that's the one thing that we can't lose sight of. We cannot lose sight of it no matter what happens out there. So I know we bit off a lot tonight. I get it. But these are subjects that we have to be able to address without a doubt. We really do. And I'm glad that all four of us have taken it upon ourselves to do it, and we'll have multiple opportunities this week with different people to be able to get their viewpoints, because as Xavier McKnight said to me, that he likes to get different views, and that's exactly why we're devoting an entire week to not only the late Mr. Floyd, but the cause overall. But any closing thoughts? We'll lead off with you, Rick Curti, before we let everybody talk about how everybody can get old. Rick, some closing thoughts about this evening. Anything else you want to add to it?
Well, it's been a great interview. I've had a lot of fun, and we have to talk about things that kind of make us uncomfortable. Sometimes this can make me uncomfortable because, sometimes people will take, especially now, we say something now and people take it the wrong way, or you're not sincere enough. So this was a good discussion, and I don't understand sometimes, I've never been harassed by a police officer in my whole entire life. I actually have a lot of friends who are in law enforcement, and I feel bad with what's going on with them because now they're targeted as being all bad. And I just want to let people know that not all police officers are like this. This is not who they are. The majority of them are good people, and it's just unfortunate that this horrible human being or human beings had to ruin it, and other bad police officers have to ruin it for the rest of the police force.
David?
Actually, let me say this, and I think I'm not making a parallel. I'm an American Jewish male. I've dealt with anti-Semitism all my life. It's not the same thing as racism, but I have been overlooked for things because of my religion. I've been criticized because of my religion. My best friend is black. Carl and I have known each other since we were 10. When I look at Carl, I don't think of him as a African-American male. I just think of him as Carl. I've never actually had a discussion with him about what it's like, to be an individual who he has had adversity at times. Never discussed that with him. He's always stood by him. So whatever he has faced, I have faced as well. I could never say that I could understand it because I'm not in his shoes, but I do know that in the last few days, I have wanted to ask more questions to become more educated. And I think that's what everybody needs to do. The only way that we fight this problem of racism and injustice and just complete mismanagement is we become more educated. And that way we fight the cause.
Candy?
I agree, David. I mean, we need to be knowledgeable. We need to understand that all of our actions speak volumes, and some of our words, where we might not intend them to be hurtful, they might be hurtful. So I agree.
Right.
We need education. We need to try. And as a whole, and I'm not even going to say this just racially. I mean, I hate to say this, but politically, Democrats and Republicans, we need to listen to each other. We need to listen to each other's viewpoints and accept that that person might not stand for the same things you do. There might be differences, but accept them for who they are and what they stand for, and try and work together for the greater good of all of us as Americans.
Okay, well, as much as I criticize that Detroit police officer earlier in the broadcast, okay, for that one-armed driving ticket, and I'm still not happy about it today, but at least it made some good conversation tonight. I should also say I've run across a lot of nice police officers, including a really nice guy out in Panama City, Florida, who I did politely give a fist bump to, and I told him we appreciate everything that you do. So, again, there are some bad eggs out there, but there are a lot of them that work really hard to do their job, and they're trained really well. With that said, okay, Rick Curti, we're going to go back to you, let people know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, you can look me up on my email at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com if you have any comments or questions. Our website is www.charlottebats.com. We're also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB is our group page. We also have another fan page at Charlotte Bats Baseball. We're also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. We're on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti.
David, you're next.
Okay, next time, guys, let me go first because I don't have that much credibility. I'm sorry, guys. I write for Fansided.com. I cover the Miami Marlins, MarlinManiac.com. I also cover the Jacksonville Jaguars at blackandteal.com. I'm on social media. I can be found at DM719907. And I also am the co-host for 108 Stitches with Scott.
Okay, I guess that's me left. Okay, you can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. We're going to stay with the business one from now on at Tribune South, so I don't have to count all the threes involved in the other one. But then you also have Facebook, like South Florida Tribune, Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. Have a YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune as well. Our website, by the way, you can listen to our broadcast also on www.southfloridatribune.com. Look for your favorite show, and you can catch the broadcast right on the website. You can also email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And LinkedIn, you can catch me at Scott Morganroth. I actually did listen to the broadcast on our website, and it made life a whole lot easier at my sister-in-law's house. You are listening, here on the WSAN network. That stands for World Sports and News. And all of our broadcasts include Sports Exchange, South Florida Tribune Podcast, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, The Real and the Rare. We do a fantasy football show with myself and Ryan Schoolrood, Motorman and Rude Dog with Rudy Reyes. And, of course, the one we're all excited about is No Limits. And if you want to find us on other ways to get a hold of us, go through Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. So for Apple Podcasts, it's on iTunes. If I didn't speak fast enough, then my driving didn't catch up with my NASCAR. Nevertheless, it's been a great show with all you guys. And the one thing I can tell you is during this uncertain time of racial injustice, we hope we've done a good job providing you with some timely commentary and insights here on the show, and we have a couple more to go. But guys, Candy, great job tonight, and we look forward to addressing this subject as the week progresses. So any other things you want to mention?
Look forward to talking to you again, guys.
All right, Rick, good job. You and Mel Farr have a date Thursday night, and meanwhile, on behalf of all of us, once again, Rick Curti, David Levin, Candy, and myself, Scott Morganroth of Motor City and Madmouth, we wish you a pleasant good evening and catch you the next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.